In this video, we're going to look at some of the terms that are important in home ownership. We're going to look at what terms are necessary to understand in order to be able to understand what it takes to buy a home. Today, we're going to look at how to buy a house, or do you want to buy a house? But first, we really need to look at some terms that are useful or that are important in understanding what it means to buy a house. One of the first terms that you'll hear in buying a house is mortgage. Most of us can't afford to pay the full price of a home outright in cash, so we have to borrow money in order to do that. What you borrow is called a mortgage. You also, though, the bank won't give you, or the loan company won't give you the total amount of the cost of a house. You have to have some money to put down on it. Typically, a conventional mortgage requires 20% down. That may be negotiable a little bit, but most all conventional mortgages are 20%. So on a $200,000 house, a down payment that you would give would be approximately $40,000. So your mortgage then would be $160,000. So when you buy a house, you have to have money to put down on that house. Then you have to be able to pay back that mortgage. Often a conventional mortgage is done on a 30-year loan or sometimes a 25-year loan. So you're paying back the mortgage over a long period of time. You're not just paying the mortgage though, you're also paying the interest on that mortgage. Interest is put, so you see a term called principal, and that's the amount you owe on the loan, plus another term you'll see is interest, and that's the amount you're paying to borrow that money. So on a $160,000 mortgage, you may be paying 4% interest on that. That is calculated over a 25 or 30-year period. We have to use a mortgage calculator to figure that because I can't give you the mathematical formula to do it. It takes a calculator because you're not doing it, you're spreading the interest out over a long period of time, and it's being deducted daily. So you use a mortgage calculator. In your assignment here, you will have a mortgage calculator to use to be able to figure how much your payment and interest would be over the 30-year period, say. In order to do this, the bank will often set up what's called an escrow account. That's the amount of money that is included in your payment that pays for not only the principal, you not only pay for the principal and interest, but you also pay for taxes and insurance that are put into this escrow account. And so as you pay a monthly payment, that includes not only your principal, your interest, but also your home insurance and your taxes. One of the additional costs of buying a home is when you actually go to get the loan and to buy the house, is called a closing cost. In closing costs there are lots of things, and it depends on whether you're buying or whether you're selling a house. But if you're buying a house, there'll be things in there like title insurance you have to pay for. You have to pay for document fees. There are all kinds of fees that are involved in a closing cost as you buy a home. Those will have to be determined by your real estate agent, your mortgage company, those kinds of things. And they give you an estimate of what those will be before you actually buy the house. Sometimes one of the things you'll see in getting a mortgage is called points. Sometimes a mortgage company will require a point or 1.5 or 2 points in order to get the loan. What that means is you have to pay up front 1.5, 2% of the loan in order to get the loan. So if you were borrowing, say, $160,000, 1 point would be $1,600 that you would have to pay in order to get that mortgage. That's one of the things that's due at closing. Closing means that's the time that the buyer and the seller get together and exchange money to buy that home. And that's one of the closing costs if you have to pay points to get a mortgage. What I've been talking about here is called a fixed rate mortgage. That is a certain amount of interest over a long period of time, 4% say over 30 years. But there also is another type, there are several other types of mortgages. One is an adjustable rate mortgage. An adjustable rate mortgage is often over a short period of time, maybe 1 year, maybe 5 years, maybe 3 years, could be 7 years, over a short period of time, and then it can be adjusted from the original rate to a different rate as you go through, or at the end of sometimes at the end of the term. Often, if a 5-year adjustable rate mortgage, it may be that it only adjusts every 5 years, or after 5 years, then it'll adjust every year. By adjusting, what that means is the mortgage company is not putting as much of their money at risk over a long period of time, because if interest rates go down, you'll pay less interest. But if interest rates go up, you will pay more interest. So they're sort of buying some time to decide whether to charge you more interest or less interest. An adjustable rate mortgage is a little bit tricky because you never know what your payment is going to be years down the road. So it's been quite popular as young people try to figure out a way to get into the home buying business without having as much down, because you don't have to pay as much of a down payment for an adjustable rate mortgage. Often it's 10%, could even be 5% down. So on a $200,000 home, instead of $40,000 cash that you would have, you might only have to have 20 or 10. Well, that's a lot easier to save up than $40,000. So adjustable rate mortgages have been popular because of that rate. But there is a fear that in the end of that term, whatever that term is, that rates will jump up from 4% maybe to 6% or 7%, which would make a huge difference in your monthly payment. So you have to be careful if you go and look at a fixed rate mortgage versus an adjustable rate mortgage. There are other types of mortgages. One is called the Federal Home Administration mortgage. That's the FHA mortgage, is one that the government guarantees. And it usually has less down payment, maybe even as little as 5% down. The rate may be just a little bit higher, but the thing there is they require what's called mortgage insurance. You have to pay mortgage insurance. That ensures the government that you will pay the mortgage. It doesn't help you at all. So you're paying out insurance to protect the government. So every month, usually it's on a monthly basis, it can be up front, but usually on a monthly basis, every month you're paying a fee to the government in order to have that mortgage. That's an FHA mortgage. Another mortgage is a VA mortgage, Veterans Administration mortgage. If you're a veteran, you may qualify for that. And again, that is you have less down payment for that and not as likely to have to put up money like mortgage insurance, although you still may, and you may in even a conventional loan if they feel you are a financial risk, but would let you do it if you paid the mortgage insurance. You try your best not to have to pay mortgage insurance. There are other types of mortgage, graduated payment mortgages, where the payment gradually gets more. You start out with a lower payment, then you gradually get higher. There's an interest-only mortgage for a short-term period. Maybe you have it for 5 years at interest only. Then after that, it's what's called a balloon, and then you have to start paying on both interest and the principal. In fact, I bought a condo in San Francisco with my daughter on that kind of basis, where for the first 10 years, she only paid the interest. After that, she had to redo the loan, and it switched to a principal and interest loan, and of course the payments became a lot more expensive at that point. But that was a way she could get into the market at that time. If one of the advantages of home ownership is that you build what's called equity in the mortgage. So if I have a $160,000 mortgage, But after 5 years, I paid that mortgage down to where it's only, say, $140,000. I have the difference of that is equity. Also, the difference that might be, the difference actually, equity is really the difference in what I owe on the thing and what it's worth. So a bank will give me a second mortgage or a home equity loan based on how much that difference is. So if I have a difference of $60,000, they might give me a home equity loan of $40,000 at a good interest rate that I could use to fix up the house, that I could use to buy an automobile, that I could use for a variety of reasons. So a home equity loan, or the equity you have in your home, becomes like a savings account for you that you can use later if you need it to borrow against it. Just quickly, a couple of other things. When you actually go to buy a house, you make what's called an offer on that house. Usually you use a real estate agent. Otherwise, you could do it by owner, but typically you use a real estate agent, and you go through that agent to make an offer to purchase. That offer is either accepted, or they may do what's called a counter offer and come back and say, well, instead of $200,000, they may say, well, it should be $210,000. You say, no, that's all I can do. I'll just do $200,000. That's that back and forth you go in terms of counter offers. But you generally do that through your real estate agent to make it worthwhile. When you do that, you put in what's called earnest money. Earnest money might be, say on a $200,000 loan, if you make an offer, you may put down a couple of $1,000s as earnest money, saying that I am actually going to buy this home if you accept my offer. That money then is credited to you towards your loan or towards your mortgage. So you don't lose that money unless they accept the offer and then you walk away without any thing, then you could lose that money. Those are some of the terms that you need to understand in buying a home. Let's look at an example of how you would figure the cost that you would have if you bought a home. First, you need to calculate the down payment that you would have. And as I said earlier, a typical down payment on a conventional loan is 20%. So assume we're going to buy a home for $200,000, and then you would need a down payment of 20%. 20% of $200,000 is $40,000. So your principal the mortgage you're going to get is $160,000, and you have to have $40,000 in cash. So to calculate the payment and interest on that $160,000 mortgage, you would go to one of our mortgage calculators. And you can find those on the web. Here's one. It's just simply go to Zillow and ask for their mortgage calculator. Look on Google, go to Zillow, mortgage calculator, and you can find it. And you put in $160,000, 30 years, and you will come up with your monthly payment. In this case, what you come up with is $764 a month is what it would cost you for payment and interest. Over the year, that's $9,168. So you simply multiply 12 times that monthly cost to get your yearly cost. Other costs that would be included in your mortgage payment would be taxes and insurance. We talked earlier about the fact that that's part of your escrow account. Taxes and insurance vary by state. They vary by company if you're talking about insurance. But let's suppose that your taxes were $5 per $1,000 of assessed value. That's the way they figure taxes, by assessed value. So let's say your home is assessed at the same value that you bought it. And oftentimes, as you just bought a house, that would be the case. So at $200,000, that would be 200 times $5, which is $5 per 1,000 assessed value. So the cost of your taxes then would be 200 times $5 equal $1,000. So your taxes for a year would be $1,000. Now, your insurance, that really really does vary by your insurance company, but often it's about 0.5% of the home value. So if you take 0.005 or 0.5% times 200,000, that's $1,000 a year. So your insurance is going to cost you about $1,000. So therefore, you have your mortgage payment at $9,168, and you have your taxes at $1,000, and you have your insurance at $1,000, coming to $11,168 per year. So just a little less than $1,000 a month is what it's going to cost you to buy this house and pay the mortgage, which includes principal and interest, and pay the taxes and insurance. Let's look at what the difference would be if you went for an adjustable rate mortgage that was interest only. In an adjustable rate mortgage with only the interest for the first 5 years, let's take that same example, $200,000. Your down payment is only going to be 10% this time. So your mortgage is going to be $200,000 minus $20,000, so it's going to be $180,000. If you had an interest rate of 3.5% on that adjustable rate mortgage, and that typically an adjustable rate mortgage, the interest rate is a little bit less, but you're only paying interest now. You're not paying the interest in principal. Your interest for that period of time would be 3.5% times $180,000, or $6,300 a year. So in your interest only, you divide then that by 12, and that's $525 a month that you're paying for that adjustable rate mortgage. You're also going to pay the same taxes and the same insurance. So you're going to pay $1,000 on taxes and $1,000 on insurance. So that's just a little less than $700 a month that you're going to be paying for that adjustable rate mortgage, which is considerably less than what you're paying conventionally. But you're only paying the interest. You have no real equity, no additional equity in that loan. So the ARM is the least expensive in this case of the two mortgages. But is it the best? Well, that's something that you have to determine given your life situation. Is it best because this is the only way I can do it? I don't have enough money for a down payment. Or is it best because things are going to change in a couple of years and I can look forward to additional income? So it really is up to you to decide which is best, a conventional mortgage or an adjustable rate mortgage. So is it better to rent or to buy? Well, again, that depends on your life situation. In this example that we just gave, monthly costs are actually less in buying than for renting. However, there's still some reasons, even if it were less, and it's not always less, you have to figure each individual case, but if it were less, there still may be some reasons why you would rather not buy and still continue to rent. One is if you don't have enough cash saved up for a down payment. It may take longer for you to save up enough money for that down payment. Or you may plan to move if your situation is not a stable situation right now, and you may move in the next 3 years or less than 3 years, then you might be better off renting. The rule of thumb really is that you need to be able to stay in a house 3 years in order to make it worthwhile in terms of buying. And perhaps, another issue might be that your job is unstable. You're not sure whether you're going to have this job next year, or maybe you're not sure whether your employer is going to move you to another location. Or it may be that you simply don't have enough resources to take care of unforeseen costs, like a new roof or an air conditioner that would go out. Your landlord paid for those when you were renting, but if you buy, you're responsible for that. So those are some of the issues that you need to think about when you're looking at whether I should rent or whether I should buy. One final thing about home ownership. One of the things that is really important as a homeowner is that you get some tax benefit. All the interest you pay on a mortgage is tax deductible. Also, your taxes that you pay on your home ownership are tax deductible. That's a major benefit. For instance, in the example that we gave about the adjustable rate mortgage, the $6,300 you paid in interest and the $1,000 you paid in taxes, those would all be tax deductible. So the $7,300 that you spent on this is a deduction against your income tax. If you're in the lowest income tax bracket, 15%, that would save you a little over $1,000 a year in your tax bill. If you're in a higher tax bracket, let's say the 28% bracket, that would save you a little over $2,000 just on that one adjustable rate mortgage that you bought. So a tax benefit is a major benefit, really, to home ownership. But you don't get that benefit right away. My first home, I mentioned I bought it and I didn't know about a lawnmower. Well, I also thought I'd figured all this and figured that, yeah, I'm going to get all this money back. But I didn't get it back right away. It's not until after you file your taxes and you get your money back. So it's over a year later that you really see that tax benefit. So don't expect it right away.